Interbeing has to do with a pursuit of self-understanding that has been an ongoing inquiry for thousands of years across every culture. Enlightened figures across all of these cultures and times have arrived at an understanding of the self that is very different from how we feel it to be in our day-to-day lives. The perspective of Interbeing on the nature of self and consciousness bridges science and spirituality. The gist of the understanding is expressed well by Albert Einstein in this quote: "A human being is part of the whole called by us universe. A part limited in time and space, he experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to enhance all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty." The same understanding that Einstein grasped was also comprehended by Thich Nhat Hanh, who coined the term interbeing. Here is how Thich Nhat Hanh puts it: "True self is non-self, the awareness that the self is made only of non-self elements. There's no separation between self and other, and everything is interconnected. Once you are aware of that, you're no longer caught in the idea that you are a separate entity." This graphic lays out the conceptual space of interbeing. Each of these subcategories has to do with an aspect of personal identity, or in other words, answering that question: who am I ultimately? Who am I right now? Who am I after I die? Who was I before I was born? Generally, self-transcendence is about the understanding I am of no self. Open individualism is about the understanding I am of oneness, and nature connectedness is about the understanding I am of nature. Each of these domains captures an important aspect of the interbeing identity as a whole. Let's begin by looking at nature connectedness. To understand nature connectedness, let's move through an extremely brief guided thought. If you'd like, close your eyes and take yourself back in time, through your childhood, back before you were born, back before the apes, before the first ocean organisms, before the Earth's formation, all the way to the very point of the Big Bang. At this time, the earliest version of you, the Big Bang, was 1,000,000,000,000,000,000 times smaller than the size of an atom. Attach yourself to that one single tiny point. Feel the awareness of yourself. This is me. Now, move back forward in time as that point and experience what you have expanded into. You experience yourself as the formation of the stars, the formation of the galaxies, of the Earth and the Moon. You experience life as the first ocean organisms. You experience through the eyes of the dinosaurs, the apes, and eventually as every single human and every other form of consciousness on our planet today. And you find yourself right here, right now, in this room. Attaching personal identity to the singular process of nature unfolding is a core part of interbeing, which is nature connectedness. Now, whenever you are ready, open your eyes. To get in touch with nature connectedness in the here and now, we can think about a few aspects of ourselves that we take for granted, but are really quite profound. For starters, we are about 60% water. Every breath we inhale is the exhalation of trees and other photosynthesizers. every single part of our body is something that we have eaten that ultimately grew and lived somewhere else. And if we stroke our chins for long enough, we can see that really all of our self is made of non-self elements that are in relationship with each other. Alan Watts captures the essence of nature connectedness well with this quote: "As the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe." Next, to understand self-transcendence, it's important to first define the self. Susan Blackmore offers a great definition of the intuitive sense of separate self that we experience as 1. The experiencer of experiences, 2. The initiator of actions, 3. Unified, and 4. Continuing. Self-transcendence is thus to move beyond the typical sense of a separately bound self-entity that is a unified, continuing experiencer of experiences and initiator of actions. Where we find identity on the other side of self-transcendence is captured well by a term from philosophy: open individualism. Open individualism is the idea that there is just one subject of experience, which is everyone at all times. This can be contrasted to the sense of self that we normally feel, closed individualism, the feeling that there are many numerically separate subjects of experience, each a bounded, separate self of its own. So, when we connect our sense of identity to the single process of nature, rather than separated individual selves, we can see ourself as one ultimate subject, interbeing as everyone at all times. Even though, in each unique instance of experience, we only have memory cueing us into that particular individual channel of experience. Zooming outward to the whole construct of interbeing, we can capture it with the following phrase: there is one connected process of nature, experiencing all individuals as unique instances of itself. To dive into what this means, let's try out moving through another guided thought. If you'd like, you can close your eyes again. Imagine that you have moved, as the single point of the Big Bang, forward and into every single experience that is happening at this moment right now. Freeze that moment in time. In that frozen moment, the universe has expressed itself through your first-person perspective. At that exact same time, there are many other first-person perspectives. Find yourself as the expression of the universe, shifting through each one of those perspectives, without any of your own individual memory attached. Move through those moments of conscious perspective, perhaps beginning with a family member, then a moment of your closest loved ones, perhaps a pet you might have. Imagine experiencing this one frozen moment as all of the pets that are out there, as each animal living in nature, as all of the animals that are part of the meat industry, the chickens, the pigs, the cows, and as all of the people of the world. Back through the person you love the very most, and onwards into your own individual self. Now allow the next moment of time to happen, and briefly take yourself through the same progression, and then back to yourself in the here and now, to the nice, familiar sense of individuality. When you are ready, you can open your eyes. This is a step-by-step way to connect to the notion of interbeing. This graphic synthesizes the understanding of interbeing. It shows first-person perspective as an aspect of the single connected universe, which is expressed through each unique individual. In a frozen moment of time, one by one, as each conscious self. This can be contrasted to our day-to-day sense of separate being, in which first-person experience is bound by separate selves, each holding first-person experience isolated to its own individual tunnel of experience. In sum, we can understand interbeing and separate being as follows. Separate being, many different centers of experience, and interbeing, one center of experience in many places. And when we fully internalize interbeing into our core, we see all beings as other instances of our ultimate identity. How we understand the core essence of what we are feeds into how we treat the environment, how we relate to animals, how we approach politics, and how we interact with others outside ourselves. Interbeing is an incredible concept and a revolutionary way for us to think about ourselves. It is a very unique time in our evolutionary history right now, in which we are beginning not to have to fight tooth and claw for our own survival, a time which may allow for a new level of cooperation and compassion, a time at which science is offering us amazing communication tools for understanding ourselves in a way that well-known figures have across the ages and cultures, and also a time in which how we relate to our environment and how we use our ever-growing technological power could create an experience of life that is better or worse than it ever has been in human history.